Welcome to the Get Published podcast, sponsored by Brodie Consulting Group. To get more information about our coaching, publishing, executive ghostwriting, and podcast production services, go to getpublishedpodcast.com. Hello, I am Paul Brodie, and thank you for joining us for another episode of the Get Published podcast, where we help authors get published with a proven system that works. Today, we're being joined by Michael Kornbluth, author of Controlling My Kids with Comedy, a love story. Michael, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Paul. Great to be on it.
Are you ready to get started?
I am.
All right. Question number 1. What is the one piece of advice that you would give to a first-time author who is currently writing their book?
My one piece of advice would be this: to blog the book into existence. I use WordPress, so you'll know what's working and what's not. Plus, it will keep your fighting spirits afloat and get your mojo rising till the end. My only friend, the end. So that's what I would recommend. Now, for me, especially if you're writing the book from home and you're looking after 3 children and have 0 grandparent help whatsoever, what I've noticed is that, for me in particular, with like comedy, you do need a reaction, and in the end, the audience reveals all. So I believe that when you have a platform such as WordPress and you make your intention or purpose aware to everybody, and you spill your guts and you say, hey, listen, I'm writing this book. And for me, my experience was I ended up submitting a lot of these popular blog posts to the Good Men Project, and they had published like 16 of them along the way. So that definitely helped secure my non-divisive Good Men status, and that was wonderful. So, and it also made the process, less tedious, less, I hate to use the word lonesome, but writing a book is a time-consuming endeavor. But when you're able to get constant feedback and know that you have an audience that's developing and growing, and that is intense on reading what you have to do next, it's gonna increase your motivation. And in the end, what I always tell my children, pressure creates diamonds. So that would be my one piece of advice. I understand that some agents, they won't even touch you if you blog the book, but you have to start somewhere. And for me, it worked wonders. So that would be my piece of advice, is to blog whatever book you're working on into existence for first-time authors.
And what do you feel is the hardest part about getting published?
Well, what I've realized after sending out book proposals to a lot of different agents is that the hardest part in relation to getting published, when you've never been a published book author before, is selling interest in your story and getting an agent or publisher into backing a first-time author that can't guarantee a huge built-in audience awaiting to buy their book, the moment it posts on Amazon, to be jerked off by all of your adoring bot fans at large. So that's what I've noticed.
Well, let's talk about marketing. So please share a marketing strategy that you have used in your book launch that has worked well.
Proclaiming to my friends, if you love me at all, you'll review my book and work on reading the book and reviewing it on your lunch break till it's complete, or else you fail the friendship litmus test. Forever. So that's one approach.
I like that.
Thank you. And in the past, it's related, but I've been writing TV spec scripts and pilots for a long time. When I worked at Robert Half and I was doing IT headhunting, I wrote a Louis spec before Louis mucked up any sort of connection to that show. And Nick DiPaolo read it. I sent it to him through Twitter and Facebook. I ended up writing a pilot for him. I got Margaret Cho to read a pilot of mine called Mike Mates. That was through Twitter. So, my advice here is, listen, if I can get A-list headliner comedians to show an interest in one of my scripts, a script is 40 pages, it could be 60 pages, then to read it in its entirety and to generate interest through Twitter. What's Twitter? It's a messaging tool. So I would recommend, using that. Right now I've also decided to tap into my WordPress followers. I'm up to like 250 followers. So I've been reaching out to them through Twitter because I don't have email addresses. And so that's been popular as well. I'm sure you've discussed this on your podcast before, but it seems really screwy, this entire concept with Amazon saying, well, you can't offer your book for free for a review, but I understand that concept, but for me, as far as I'm concerned, there was this one woman that had written me a review, and I had read her book a long time ago, and I decided to write her a review, and I made my book aware to her, and she ended up writing a glowing review, and that's wonderful. So in the end, my main advice here, Paul, is there's this book I read by Billy Idol, and he was talking about Lou Reed, and Lou Reed, he had the opportunity to record Lou Reed, but Lou Reed decided to charge him for the privilege, and then so Billy Idol, excuse the expression here, Paul, in the end told him to go F off. So the message here that Billy Idol said is F your role models, and what I mean by that is it's great to want to impress them. And if you have role models that you want to impress in material, that's great. But also, just don't be afraid. I mean, it's not that big of a deal. I mean, if they have an imagination, you have an imagination, you have something to say, and you're unique and you're different from them. So definitely double down on your unique brand and specialness, and don't be afraid of approaching anybody. That's my advice. And Twitter is a phenomenal messaging tool. And using that friendship litmus test, will make you understand who your fake news friends are, and you'll live a happier, more contented life as a result.
Well, speaking of books, I'd like to ask you about your favorite book and what was the number one thing that you learned from it.
It would be Anthony Bourdain, No Reservations. Because prior to that, I mean, I love Charles Bukowski, Henry Miller. Why is that? Because I thought that they wrote in the first person in a very effective, conversational, funny, biting, super personalized way. And I thought that Bourdain did that with even more gravitas. And he also sounded that much more modern. And I also thought that he was that much more emotionally honest. And he really, for me, as far as I'm concerned, really made writing in the conversational, creative nonfiction sense, he made it feel like a rock and roll type experience. It had an incredible edge, and it stimulated me more than any time-release Adderall pill I've ever taken, and that inspired me to start, writing reviews on Yelp back in the day, and I decided to work on my storytelling, and when I was looking after my kid, I couldn't do stand-up, and then I had written a couple of short stories, examples of flash food fiction. Anthony Bourdain rips my frozen lunch apart. I don't drink German Rieslings. My very last meal, all published in Fire Knives in England, which won Best Food Magazine in 2012. I understand it's a dated reference, but so it's that book in particular that really got me excited about writing in a poetic yet funny narrative type way outside of set up punch for pure joke writing, or from not doing TV spec or pilot work. So Anthony Bourdain, he was the best.
And for a final question, what is your favorite quote and why?
There's a quote by this writer Joseph Brodsky. He says, "Life, the way it really is a battle not between bad and good, but between bad and worse." And it's my favorite quote because for me it emphasizes relishing the process of whatever your labor of love is, knowing it beats the crap out of whatever shitty, unloved job, internship, failed relationship, or past living, fight all the time, sexless relationship you had to endure prior. So that's why. And the quote for me, it symbolizes the importance of perspective, and and accentuating the positive. And if I'm going to quote the great Rabbi Mendel Schneerson, think good and it will be good. I don't think Babyface Omar is going to be quoting Rabbi Mendel Schneerson, but I'll quote. I know she wants to educate herself in Israel. So there we go. Rabbi Mendel Schneerson, think good and it will be good. But that won't work in terms of you impeaching Trump. But there we go. That's my advice, and that's my favorite quote.
Well, Michael, I want to thank you for being a guest on the show. What is the best way for people to find you online?
I'm omnipresent. I'm everywhere. Do It All Dad Year podcast, Spotify, up to 5,000 downloads. Do It All Dad Year, blog, LinkedIn, Twitter, and my book, Controlling My Kids' Economy, a love story, available exclusively on Amazon. And for all my adoring fans that want to send me fan mail, you can send that to doitalldadyyear@outlook.com.
Well, Michael, I want to thank you once again for being on the show, and I wish you all the best in your author journey ahead.
Great. Thanks, Paul.
Thanks again for joining us today. To learn more about how you can be featured in our brand new Get Published business book, go to getpublishedpodcast.com.